Me, YouTubing 3 times in quick succession. It's almost like I'm proper. And if I'm being proper, I should remind you to like and subscribe, which actually involves, doing the actions. Anyway, I'm here to talk about these 10 SPFBO finalists. And yeah, object of this exercise is to get you interested in them, to get eyeballs on these titles. The SPFBO itself shows us that a contest is a very good mechanism for um, interesting people, and then as a byproduct, the books get the exposure. So I'm going to walk us through a blog post that I did yesterday for the purposes of this YouTube, where I make a contest of sorts. And what I do is I'm going to look at the first line/lines of each of these books, and then I'm going to rank them in terms of which I feel is the best first line and the least best. And very tongue-in-cheek, I'm going to then say, well, this is clearly how the 10 bloggers, after reading the entire books, will rank the them overall on the scoreboard. And we'll see if that's true at the end. But obviously, it's nonsense. It's rather like trying to judge the quality of sports cars by whether you like the color they're painted. But even so, it's fun. We'll look at them, and I'm going to go for each of them in turn. So it's worth saying here that a book can have a first line is important. So the first page is important. The first chapter is important. All of a book's important, but grabbing someone early, especially when they've got many choices to bail on you, feels important. It feels important to sink some hooks in them and say, maybe you're only reading the sample of this on Amazon, but I want to keep dragging you through it. And when you get to the end of that sample, I want you to need to buy the book. Or if you just bought the book cheap, like 99-cent sale, and it's on your Kindle. A lot of those books that are bought cheap or given away free are just not read. They just sit on Kindles forever. So I want you to, when you start, to not be able to stop. But obviously, a book can have a terribly meh first line, and it can have a pretty dull first page, and still over the course of several chapters, it can sink those hooks really deep into you and be an astounding book, best book you've read all year or maybe your entire life. So what I'm about to do is clearly nonsense, but it's also entertaining. And one of the reasons I focus on first lines is because of the things I've just outlined, but also just because it's easy. Like I think Dom's books. One of our bloggers for the SPFBO has just released today an analysis where he goes through the first chapter, and clearly he's read 10 chapters. That's quite a lot of work, whereas I'm far too lazy for that. I've read 10 first lines. So I'll read each of them in turn and then say what I have to say about them. So the Last Ranger, which is by JDL Russell. The silver fox watched the hidden one travel along the wooded trail. So that line really doesn't do very much. It just introduces the silver fox, the hidden one, and they're on a wooded trail. And I put that one as the least good. Now, actually, and this kind of makes my point for me, I guess, if you then read the next few lines, which I will do, he'd followed the human and the horse for some time now. The human had always had a peculiar scent, an aroma that contained many things, the fragrance of the forest, the predator's stench, a second life burning within the first. So that a second life burning within the first, that's actually a really good hook. So this is a good opening. It's just the first sentence was pretty meh, but actually it's a good opening. That second life burning within the first. I want to know about that, and it's well put and it's interesting. So it shows you that even if the first line isn't all that, you can be really cooking with gas by line 3 or 4. So next one is Master of the Void by Wend Raven, and there it is. And that one starts tap, tap, tap. I'm not mean enough to make tap the first sentence or even tap, tap, tap the first sentence. Orimond Leatus shifted irritably in his high-backed wooden chair. So that's the first line. And again, it's not the greatest of first lines. what I always say about adjectives, use them when they are interesting. Most chairs are wood, especially in fantasy. So that feels like a wasted adjective. Use an adjective when it tells us something new. I've said, well, here, if the chair was made of ham, that would be worth mentioning. And even the high backed. I mean, this is line one where we're all the real estate on the page is valuable. It feels like a bit of a sort of don't care how high backed his chair was. And then we read on and we go, there were many things in this world that vexed him, too many to list really, but the dripping of rain gutters had to be in the top 10. So yeah, we learn that he's irritable. Um, but it's not for me a particularly hooky opening, and the first line is fairly unengaging. But I'm sure because it was chosen as the finalist by was it Covers with Cassidy? Um, I'm sure that the actual book itself is splendid and has lots to offer us. I do say there that these double-barreled name, it's not double-barreled. Given the full name, we're we're going to be in this point of view, I suspect. And if you're in a point of view, I always find a full name intro to be a bit distancing because it feels like we're out of the point of view. I never think of myself as Mark Lawrence. I think of myself as Mark, maybe. And if you're then going to put me in this person's skin and say, oh no, like he was hungry and he was worried about so and so, this full name could be delivered later on, and I'd be okay with Ormond. But that's a very minor thing. I go on about it in several of the other ones, and maybe I'm the only person in the world who actually cares about that level of stuff. So the next one is Daughter of the Beast, which has a rather nice cover, I feel. That's the one there by E.C. Greaves. Let's have a look at that. Number 3. I parried the blow, then twisted to lash out with an attack of my own. Um, yeah, I mean, I often say it's good to start in the middle of something, especially some action. So it ticks those boxes. Um, and if you're in a fight, well, you've got your tension there automatically, and you can start expanding from there while entertaining us with the fight. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It just as a first line, it felt a bit generic. There's no actual, there's blow and there's twisting and there's lashing and attacking, but we don't know what they're attacking with, what weapons. We don't. I really want to be in there a bit more gutturally, a bit more make me feel it. I want to know about the sword's edge or the knife's point or so. And we carry on. He deflected easily. Perhaps I'd underestimated this so-called knight. Controlled quick thrusts, a feint, then a backhand, his footwork. And so we're carrying on with the fight. And this underestimation carries with it some additional maybe tension or threat. A bit more interesting if our point of view is going to be outclassed. But even so, I still don't know what weapon they're using. Number 4 or 5, I think. The Last Fang of God, another rather lovely cover. And let's read that one. Kalen woke with a start as the shadow crossed the doorway to his bedroom. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty solid. It's something is up. So we got questions. What's the shadow? He's just woken up. He's going to be in bed. He's vulnerable. So there's some tension. And if we read on, his right hand went to the sheathed dagger under his pillow, while his left shielded his eyes from the dying light of the fire in the main room. So there's some character, clearly if he's got his wits about him to shield his eyes from the light, and he got a dagger under his bed, there's various questions prompted by who is this guy and why is he sleeping with a dagger, yada yada. It's a solid opening, and that's number 5. Number 6, I believe, is A Rival Most Vile, which is this one down here, by R.K. Ashwick. Before the door opened, everything in Ambrose Beek's life was perfect. So that's a nice opening line. It's there's a few like that are coming where we have a fairly innocuous part to the sentence, and then something that turns it around, that flips it up. So here he's got this perfect life, but the door's opened and all of that has changed. So that's interesting. Questions are asked. I still complain about the full name introduction. And then we go, his shop stood empty and quiet, a reflection of the sleepy street outside. His footsteps echoed alone, delightfully alone, on the polished wood floor as he dusted the bottles, glowing healing vials, smoky invisibility potions, da 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 da. So yeah, it's a nice description, and we get the idea that he likes being on his own, and something has come to disturb him. This description, if we just started off with that, that would have been pretty dull in terms of a first page of an opening to hook me. Um, a little indulgent to start describing the shop like that at that point, but because we've been primed with the door's going to open and it's going to upend his life. Now this is sort of playing with us. This is a delaying tactic, but we're reading on because we want to know who's coming through the door. So that all worked pretty well. I like that. The whole opening is good, and I like the first line. I think we're now up to maybe number 7, the Wickwire Watch, which is this one by Jacqueline Hagan. Starts, had Mr. Bash known this was the night he was going to die, he would have stayed at home. I like that. It's a good punchy first line. No complaints. It asks a whole bunch of questions, and makes me want to read the next line. And the next line is, instead, he found himself toiling up a winding lane with an ache in his back and both knees stiffened by the cold. His laboured breath rose in swirling wisps of vapour, and he amused himself with the idea that they were shreds of his soul stealing away to warmer climates. So it carries on quite nicely too with, and there's a kind of sense of humor, and even in the first line you get this, it's got a sort of the quirkiness of the structure just alerts you to the fact that the writer has some humor running through it, and then that's reinforced by Mr. Bash's musings on his soul escaping, which was entertaining. And I always say, try not to open with the weather. It's not a good look. It's very attractive to open with weather, but people think they're scene setting, but it's done so often, and that's why the line "it was a dark and stormy night" is not one that people are saying yes, do this. They're saying no, don't do that. That's a bad way to open a book. But here the cold is used very well, so I'll giving that a pass. And the next one is from Cold West. We're getting towards the end now, by Clayton Snyder. Looks like cowboy stuff. They say when a man meets the love of his life, all the mean goes out of him. Yeah, that's a good line. It's that sort of divorce statement. But it's important when killing a nun. That's a sort of step back divorce statement. And it's an intriguing statement. It lets us know that we're going to meet a man who has met the love of his life, and the mean went out of him, and quite possibly he's lost the love of his life and it's come back. There's an intrigue about who this man is and quite how much mean came out of him. And if we read on, sometimes in small bits like venom leaving the blood, sometimes in great rushes like an open artery. I don't know about that. I do know when that person's gone, it starts to slip back in, a knife in the heart. So there's all kinds of violent imagery there, which would back up this intuition that we were going to meet the guy who has gained and then lost his love, and lost and then gained his meanness, which is all making me quite happy to read on. In fact, insisting that I read on, which is good stuff, and I like that. Hills of Heather and Bone. I think we are now coming to the last couple of them, the lines I liked best. So here's Hills of Heather and Bone with the world's smallest author name, very modest, and I think I have checked before and it was something like K.E. Andrews. It's definitely Andrews. Let's have a look at the line in question. Death hums beneath the dirt as I tear up a web of ground ivy from the bed of lettuce. And I like that as a first line. I thought that was interesting. I mean, it immediately opens up with death humming beneath the dirt. So that's your fantasy right there. Possible necromancy or some sort of threat under the dirt anywhere. But then the person is tearing up some ground ivy, and all of a sudden we've got lettuce. And that sort of um, contrast of death and lettuce is intriguing to me. If certainly if you've read a lot of fantasy, it's nice to see something that surprises you, and the death and the lettuce did surprise me. Um, yeah, and we get to the ivy, and you could still be in some sort of churchyard grave setting, but then it's lettuce, so we've clearly got gardening going on. If we read on, purple blooms are set like gems against the green leaves. Its roots are tangled around a mouse skull. I run dirty fingers across the yellowed eye sockets. Flashes of scurrying through plants and sunlight trickle out. So yeah, carries on talking about plants, but there's this sort of slightly macabre mouse skull, and the person turns out to be a she is touching the eye socket. So there's nice sort of contrast of the pretty flowers, the death, and I still want to know what's going on, and that's all you need to do on a page one or a book in general, is to have the reader continually want to know what's going on. Um, Murder at Spindle Manor. Now, this might be the penultimate one. So, where's Murder at Spindle Manor? There it is. Ooh, spiders. Don't like spiders. By Morgan Stang. Isabeau Agawal stood before Spindle Manor at 7 o'clock in the evening with every intention of killing someone. Yes, I mean, aside from the full name introduction that I gripe about, which is a minor nit. That's really good. Isabeau Argawal stood before Spindle Manor at 7 o'clock in the evening with every intention of killing someone. So I like that. Obviously, there's the intention of killing someone, which is who and why and all the questions lining up. But I like it because of the contrast. The start of the sentence is very precise. We've got the full name, we've got the place, and we've got the exact time. And then we go to killing someone. So all that precision, and then this sort of wide open, going to kill someone, anyone, and that the contrast, the juxtaposition amuses me, and the whole structure, what the content intrigues me. And if we read on, so rain pounded on her umbrella, thunder rolled deep and low. Isabeau adjusted the heavy baggage hanging off her shoulder. Blah 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 blah. Again, yeah, weather, but at least I'm still interested in who she's going to kill and why, and who is she, and I have many questions. So I think that's a very good opening. And this is the last one. This is the one I liked best, which is the fall is all there is. And these are very minor judgments. You know, I was giving these things little scores as I was going through, and it's sort of a whole bunch of them with sort of 8 out of 10 and one with 8.5 out. So it's not like one is knocking the socks off the next, but this is the one I put top. I was 6 years old the first time Mom threatened to sew my mouth shut. I like that. The sewing of the mouth shut is a more specific and interesting threat than going to die or going to kill someone. Those are interesting, and I rank them highly, but this is specific, and details matter. Putting details in, not everywhere, but putting some details in so that it makes it a specific, real thing, I think is a powerful technique. And this threat is against a 6-year-old. So you're thinking, was the mother completely crazy, or was the 6-year-old in some way that terrible? What's going on there? I have many questions. It carries on. She got the needles out and everything, I swear. In her defense, I was a chaotic little shit at that age. So we get the humor, we get the actual, it's not just a threat, it might just be a threat, but it's a threat that's accompanied by displaying the instruments of torture first. So it's an interesting situation, and I thought that was a punchy opening. and I rank that one top today. If you ask me to do it tomorrow, probably shuffle them around a little bit. So I hope that has intrigued you and made you want to read all of these. And I will leave you to it.